Testing, testing. Okay.
This sits up by her.
Oh,
You think it's Michelle?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for making the trip. Appreciate it. Hope that lunch is yummy. This is the annual meeting of the Community Development Commission, dated April 17th, 2024. We're starting a little late at about 12:40. I'm Deborah Allen, the chairman. I call our meeting to order, and may we take a roll call?
yes, I'd be happy to do that. Allen,
Allen present.
Bates,
It's here.
Leonard, Surgis, Lindner, and Schilke, Skillman,
Present.
Barus,
Harris present.
Armstrong.
Armstrong present.
You have a quorum.
Because this is just an annual meeting, could we take a quick run around the table and say how we're connected? I'm Deborah Allen. I'm a county board member from District 17, which is, if you took Elgin and you made it across like this, I would have the southeast quadrant of Elgin. Mavis?
My name is Mavis Bates. I'm a Kane County Board member from District 4, which is on the southwest to northwest side of Aurora. My base area is Aurora University and Byron's.
I'm Bill Roth. I am a county board member, District 12, which is the east side of St. Charles, east of the river. I'm not on the committee, but I show up at every committee meeting to learn. So Deborah invited me to make sure I was coming. I said, of course.
Mr. Roth is an honored guest.
Thank you.
Brian Barris. I am a commercial real estate broker, live in Batavia, and happy to be here again.
Welcome. Thank you.
John Skillman, Village of Carpentersville.
I think we see you on road signs saying this road is being cared for by John Skillman.
That's a good.
I'm Tom Armstrong, a resident of Elgin, chair of the Elgin Sustainability Commission.
Thank you, Tom. And our honored staff.
I'm Josh Beck. I am the Assistant Director for Community Development for the Office of Community Reinvestment. I oversee a lot of the, all of the community development, housing, and homelessness grants for Kane County.
I'm Scott Berger, Director of OCR.
Well, thank you all.
Each of these microphones behaves a little bit differently, so.
Tom, I apologize for not recognizing you. Zoom, nobody looks the same on Zoom and in person.
And I'm just checking, it doesn't look like anyone asked to participate remotely.
That's correct.
Go figure. Okay. All right. Had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from March 9th of 2023. Thank you for doing such a thorough job on the minutes, for showing the recommendations from last year. I think that's very helpful. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Good. And a second?
I was not here. I abstain. I have to abstain. I was not here. Okay, I'll second.
Thank you. For roll call. In the county, we're now doing, we approve things by
Consensus.
by consensus, but because this is an annual meeting and we are not all the county folks, well, look who has decided to join us. Mr.
Meeting and I'm in the wrong.
This is our county board member, Cliff Surgis. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We have a box lunch for you. Could you just take a second to say how you're connected with us besides being, where are you a county board member from?
I represent, I'm up at the north end and I represent Gilbert's, Sleepy, West Dundee, and a scooch of East Dundee, scooch of Carpentersville. But I'm up and down that, Route 72 Randall Road corridor right there.
For sure.
So,
Well, you'll recognize some of the folks here. The gentleman over here is Tom Armstrong, and he is from Elgin. He was a planner for the city. And Mr. Skillman?
yeah, the honor.
You already, yeah. Okay. And Mr. Harris? Good.
And Mr. Dorgan is
Oh, good. Sure.
I still just enjoy talking.
So you're gonna get your lunch and come
I'm
back?
gonna grab it.
All right. Can we do a roll call on the minutes because we're an annual meeting and I think it's worth doing it that way.
Allen,
Aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Skillman,
Yes.
Barris,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Surges. Sorry.
He will
Flip.
will vote, yes.
Let's
the
go,
moment He
Cliff.
reappears.
Yes, Liv.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you,
This
sir.
thing's on now. Huh?
Good. I don't believe I see public comment. Are we aware? Did anyone write in or call in and say they wanted to? comment?
No, we have no indication of anybody wishing to make a comment.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ready for our program update and Josh, I believe you'll present that for us?
We'll start. You betcha. Okay. First time anybody's ever asked me to use a microphone, so. All right, first slide here, we got the community development overview. The community development program in King County was established in 1998. The community development program on a nationwide level actually is 50 years old this month. The bill was passed or the program was launched in April of 1974. So we're celebrating the 50th anniversary. All the funds come through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Our 24-year funding total since 1998 is just a little bit over 35.1 million. The community development program is a county program in partnership with local jurisdictions within the county, and we partner with 24 different municipalities. Two of the organizations we don't partner with are the city of Aurora, or excuse me, the cities that we don't have partnership with are the city of Aurora and the city of Elgin. They get their money directly from the feds. Huntley is part in McHenry County and part in King County, and they go to McHenry County to get their money. Montgomery and Hampshire have decided to go to the state to get their dollars when they apply for CDBG funds. But the balance of all the other places, and so like the DuPage County part of St. Charles is part of our group. The Cal portion of Maple Park is part of our group. So it's a partnership between the county and the cities to get the funds here. The programs are set up to run off of priorities that are established every 5 years. It's called the Consolidated Plan, and currently we're in the 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan. The three primary priorities in that plan are affordable housing, neighborhood improvements, and homelessness. And in addition to the CDBG program, we also have the home program, which is also a partnership between the 24 communities. And in this one instance, we're also a partner with the city of Elgin. That primarily focuses on housing development.
John, can we ask while you go on?
You betcha.
For those communities that you had mentioned that choose not to, whether that was Montgomery or Huntley or what, is there an advantage for them to go directly to the state or directly? Why would they do that? And
I wasn't here, so I've got an opinion, but Scott knows exactly what happened.
I think I can answer that question. Those communities were accustomed to working with private consultants
okay,
and applying directly to the state of Illinois for federal funding before we had access directly to Washington funding.
okay, just the
Because
timing.
as Josh said, our program started in 1998, and this program is actually 50 years old. So prior to 98, municipalities in our area were eligible to go to Springfield for federal funding.
Got it.
And they did, and they grew accustomed to that.
Okay.
So.
Just curious.
And like I said, city of Elgin and the city of Aurora get their own funds and they have staff on, and they're from there, they manage their own funds. So they get to choose all that. They don't have to come to this committee to apply for funds. They get to choose how they want to use it.
Is that because they're home rule or something? like
No, it's
that?
about population.
Size, okay.
There's two ways to get CDBG funds, be a city of 50,000 or more, or be a county of $200,000 or more. That's the
Okay.
two way the feds hand out the CDBG funds. And since Aurora and Elgin obviously are over 50,000 people, they get the money and then they get to control the destiny of it. So that's from their standpoint, that they don't have to come to us and ask permission to use the funds. They just get to do it how they want.
And then just a footnote, both those communities participated in this program from the beginning, 1974. In the last several years, the city of Elgin has contracted with our office to provide administrative support to run their community development program.
Which county, which
City of
is it?
Elgin.
Okay, so they don't get the money from us, but they get administration help from
We
us.
provide administrative support and they don't employ any staff to manage their program. They contract with us for those services.
Okay, well, how nice of us.
It's worked out well,
good.
actually, yeah.
That's good.
It kind of dovetails nicely with the fact that we partner with Elgin under the home program.
Okay,
We formed a consortium to access home funds.
And to get home funds, the only way we could get home funds is to partner with Elgin. And the only way Elgin can get home funds is to partner with us. Neither of us could get it by ourselves because of the way the formulas work, where the city of Aurora actually gets its own home funds and doesn't need a partnership with anybody. Up until 2012, it partnershiped with DuPage County, but in 2012, they took on their own funds.
We're happy to explain later if you'd like more information. It's a
Oh, you-
complicated,
you're answering my
approach.
questions before I'm asking them, so you're staying ahead of me.
What Josh is basically talking about is how the federal government ensures fairness in terms of access to federal funding. Whether you're a large community of 50,000 or more, a large county of 200,000 or more, or not,
Mhm.
in which case you can access funding from the states. So the federal government provides funding to large cities, large counties, and states, and they want access to be uniform depending on whichever place you go to get the funding.
Madam Chair, may I? But then a county like Kane is spreading that out to the smaller municipalities.
So smaller municipalities are given a choice. Do you want to access funding through your large county, or
Oh,
do you want to access funding through your state?
okay,
That's hence the fragmented geography of the map.
all right, thank you.
Plus, the federal government likes to make it as complicated as possible. So, that type of thing.
Mix and match.
We'll run into our program update. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Affordable Housing Fund. The Affordable Housing Fund was established by the county board in 2016, and it is a mixture of funds from different funding sources. There's CDBG funds from King County and home funds from King County. There's Elgin CDBG funds, and then our latest partner is the City of St. Charles and their Housing Trust Fund. So what we do is on a year-to-year basis, when we get funds, we put all this money into a pot, and we release one giant RFP for service or housing services. And so like last year, the pot totaled just a little bit less than $4.3 million. And it fluctuates. In 2020, it was 3 million. So depending on what's going on and repayments from other projects, increases from the federal government in funding, the pot tends to move around. But it is basically gap financing for homeownership projects and multifamily rehab projects. And we'll show you some examples of some of those projects next.
So Josh, Madam Chair, should we address through you or are we informal or how?
Are we supposed to ask you for permission to speak?
We're a small group. I think you can go right ahead.
So I'm going to ask for the help of my fellow board members here. There was a very nice lady, African-American woman, who I thought from the feds was in charge of workforce housing that came and spoke with us and said the Biden administration has just a shit ton of money that is dedicated toward, is that right? Very informal, but was that person coordinated through you guys?
In
Or is that
part,
a
in
totally
part,
different deal?
you're referring to Diane Shelley, and she's the regional administrator for HUD.
Okay,
And that's based, our region is based, has a headquarters in Chicago. It's called Region 5 of the federal government.
okay.
And that's who that was. And yes, all the funding that Josh is talking about does come through that agency.
Got it. Okay, just trying to connect the dots
So
and
it's
put it
coming
together.
through HUD? Okay, this money is coming through HUD?
So yes, so the community development funding is federal money. It's administered by HUD. And we work directly with the Chicago field office to access those funds for our jurisdiction.
I'm going to
Perfect.
ask another confusing question. Confused, not confusing, hopefully. Where does IDA fit into this?
IDA is a state agency.
Oh, so this is a different, completely different from IDA.
It is.
Okay,
IDA is Illinois' designated housing finance agency.
okay,
It does work with federal funding, but also an array of other state programs.
okay. I remember during COVID, they were helping stop evictions by
Correct.
working with landlords and
Correct.
mostly working with landlords, I think. So I
That's
wrote a
correct.
letter to the editor so people in Aurora could not get evicted. They could
Correct.
find IDA money. Okay. This is what happens when you have an interesting meeting once a year.
We love talking about this stuff. So this is awesome, you know.
All right.
We are socially intimate and friendly,
Yes.
and it's an annual meeting, so.
Yes, you got to ask all your questions for a whole
exactly,
year.
Everybody's in one room, so
All right.
taking advantage of
And
it.
we're trying to give you a summary today, but please call if you have want any
Okay.
detail about these programs. We're happy to explain
Okay.
in more detail, if that helps.
So projects that have been completed in the Affordable Housing Fund, we've completed a total of 317 units, and they are scattered between both rental and single-family development. The current projects that we have underway that are either in pre-development or in construction are the Family Court Townhomes, which is a rehab project for 74 units in Elgin, is the new construction of Wildwood Commons by AID in Elgin off of 31 and 20. It's 26 units, and it is a permanent supportive housing development. And we're a joint funder with IDA actually on that one. You'll see that on a lot of the multifamily projects, we do actually joint fund with IDA on some of these things. The next one is Wildwood Trace. It's 50 units of rental units of 1 to 2 bedrooms that are available to people who are earning 65% of area median income or below. And the last one that's in pre-development, also in the city of Elgin on the far west side, is Giffords Crossing. They're in the process of getting themselves ready to close, and it's 36 units of family units of 3 to 4 bedrooms.
Very much needed, right? Good.
And then on our single development side, we have 46 units of completed and occupied houses that we have bought, rehabbed, and then turned around and sold to people who are at 80% of area median income. To Cliff's point about workforce development, our programs have a 80% of area median income dollar amount, which for a family of 4 is $88,000 right now. So you have to work to get into a lot of this housing we're doing. It's workforce housing. We have 6 houses that are currently in pre-development or construction, and there are 3 in Elgin, 1 in Elburn, 1 in Batavia, and 1 in St. Charles. And I want to show you some pictures of some of the houses that were sold over the past year since our last meeting. This is 422 Willow Street in Maple Park. The first version of it is on the left-hand side, the befores, and the completeds are on the right. We sold this house in October of 2023 with a contract sale price of $259,000.
And who can buy these houses? Do these
People-
have to be the 80%?
Bill at 80% AMI, yep.
Okay.
And so the next property is East Side Drive. On East Side Drive, it's 302 and 308 East Side Drive. The before photos were a 3-unit mixed commercial building that was, circa 1972 development with that nice sloping roofs and all that other kind of stuff. When we purchased it, it actually had been vacant and abandoned in the state on the bottom left-hand photo since 2019. And nobody had been doing anything with it. It just kind of been sitting there decaying. So we worked with Splain and Sons, who's based out of the city of Batavia, to buy it, and we built the 2 houses on the right. Project turned out great. Both houses have sold.
You tore down the house on the left.
The one on the left, yeah, we tore that down. It wasn't savable. No. And the first house sold in February 2023 and the second house sold on Monday.
And let me explain that Josh is sharing with you the sale prices of these homes. In order to make these purchases affordable to the income restricted home buyer that we work with, we provide a soft second, zero interest deferred payment loan. And we write that loan in an amount that leaves the part of the project that is the part of the purchase that is financed by the home buyer to be affordable. So we want these households to be able to afford their mortgage comfortably, roughly a third of their income dedicated to their housing cost. And therefore we provide them a soft second, zero interest deferred payment loan for the gap
Because
between
otherwise,
what they can afford
Exactly.
and what the property sells for.
otherwise I'm looking at those price tags and I'm not thinking they look very
That's what I
affordable.
wanted to, yeah, I wanted to make sure you understood. We're not putting that burden on the household. And when I say zero interest deferred payment loan, what that basically means is as long as the homeowner lives in the home, they don't pay us anything. When they go to sell, they pay us back. So our soft second loans.
Is it
are
about half then? Or,
Josh, can you speak to the
So
amount?
for 308, it was $160,000, and for 302, it was $180,000. And it
okay.
fluctuates based upon
Okay.
what the buyer pools that can bring to the table.
So those amounts will be repaid to the county
Uh-huh,
when those two homeowners sell,
okay.
and the funds will be recycled back into the program.
And we've been doing this since 2010. So the kind of the history of this program is there was a program when the housing bubble burst back in 2008, 2009, that we've been doing it since we got money from that program. And we've been doing the same thing since 2010. So we get payments once every 18 months. Somebody sells their house and moves out of the county, and then we get a repayment.
Mhm.
They refinance. Now, we're not getting those anymore, obviously, because interest rates have skyrocketed. But for a while there, people were refinancing, get 2% mortgages or 2.5% mortgages. So they have to pay us off to get that, so they can get those cheaper mortgages. So
Later on in the meeting, you'll hear a reference to program income as
Yes.
one available source of funding to fund future activities. We'll talk about that later.
Mr. Roth.
Scott had presented these two houses back in May last year. And so I had asked him when and then they were completed, I get a tour. So was it January or
December.
December? He gave me a personal tour. They're right on east side by just north of Route 38, Roosevelt. And they're very nice homes. And I drive by them every day on the way here. So I saw them going up. And I saw, within the last month, somebody moved into the north one, and Scott just mentioned to me a half an hour ago that they just sold the second one. So it's a good for the neighborhood.
Very good. Who built
Here.
them? Just regular contractors?
Splain and Sons.
Oh.
Yep.
Maybe you could get some high school shop kids. That's okay. You don't have to work. You don't have to write that down.
Here's renderings of the two developments in Elgin that AID is building for the Wildwood Trace development. AID at just south of the Secretary of State licensing owns a 16-acre plot of land, and they built these two, and then they're planning on doing more work on the other part of the lots. But these two take up about 8 acres worth of lots. So when I see I have a typo, I apologize. That should be 50 units on the Wildwood Trace.
Take up 2 lanes of Route 31 and it makes you late for meetings.
And that was presented at a county development meeting a couple months ago because they had the rainwater, they put a pipe in to go to the river instead of flooding the ball field there. That's just to the
Yeah,
east.
I think was it Forest Preserve?
It was baseball fields.
Okay, yep. Yeah, because I know they were having problems with that at first. Probably the
Right.
best way to salute and then
Right. And they decided that was the best solution.
And this is a rendering of the Giffords Crossing buildings, can be 36 units, a townhome style. We're projected to close on this one in June of 2024. And construction will begin right away because they don't want to pay any more construction interest when they have to. So they're going to get that going as soon as possible so they can get it unoccupied and get the construction loans paid off.
I think this project is just north of Wing Street on the northwest side of
Yes.
Elgin, just for reference.
I'm sorry?
Off the Big Timber.
Yes, off of Big Timber. Yep.
Oh, Big Timber?
I think so. Yeah.
It's not, it's okay.
It's an unincorporated, it's currently unincorporated and it's going to be sucked into the city as part of, the development process. So, and we'll move on to the neighborhood improvements projects. These are projects that are all completed. And so last year, this committee approved funding of $300,000 for the city of Carpentersville, or excuse me, Village of Carpentersville, to work on multiple streets. You'll see on the map, there's a list on the far right-hand side, but anything is blue were the streets that they worked on that year. This has been a great partnership we've had with the Village of Carpentersville for several years, helping them replace streets on the east side of Carpentersville.
Question. Could neighborhood improvement include like replacing the lead pipes that a lot of cities are struggling with?
Actually, when it comes to lead pipe, I think you're referring to connections, individual homeowner
Right,
connections.
right.
So under our program, that would be a service that would be homeowner dependent, eligibility
Okay,
dependent.
okay,
That's considered a project that doesn't benefit the community. It benefits an individual household.
okay. But the main lines, if it's still lead, would we help the
Main-
city?
Main lines would be a municipal public infrastructure
And we would
project.
help on that.
We could.
Okay,
Neighborhood improvements is pretty broad in the fact that it can be parks, it can be streets, it can be sidewalks, it can be stormwater, it can be sanitary sewer. I mean, anything that is community, benefits a neighborhood, not just one individual homeowner. Yep, no problem.
We just for your information, we just finished 400 lead pipe replacements. We have 30 left, 30 people who will not let us in their house.
What
We can't
money-
do it. And per the grant, that we have a federal grant, we got $4 million to do that. We cannot do it without their signature. So we're stuck right now.
Okay.
We're stopped, basically, from completing the project. Elgin Mayor, we were in a meeting and I don't know how many he has, like 24,000 or
Yeah, they are a massive amount.
They don't know what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
so,
Chicago's got how many?
right. So it's not necessarily we don't have the money, it's people are resisting working with the cities.
But it was only a few. You said it was 24 people.
30 out of
Out
400,
of
something.
About 10%.
about
That's-
10%.
But we need everybody. We need to do it. We need to get it done.
Right.
Every town needs to get it done.
Because it doesn't get cheaper.
And where did the money come from? It was a federal grant?
Yeah, federal grant, we won the grant opportunity,
Yeah.
so.
People keep asking us to use ARPA money for that, but there are many other grants that are around for that. We just have to do that homework.
Yep.
I think.
Town has to do
Different funding sources have different requirements. So it's not as simple as where do I go for money? It's, which program do I want to participate in and what requirements do I have to satisfy?
Mhm.
They're always looking for shovel-ready stuff. You probably know that already, you
Mhm.
guys. If you have something ready, phase 1 done, phase 2, then, you could pick up grants.
Yep.
So that's why we work well with a lot of these grants. That's how we learned.
That's why we're finishing our climate action plan, our strategic plan. Get your plans ready, right? Money goes to the plans.
Yeah, people don't understand that. You're sitting here, right? Sorry.
So the next project is out in Maple Park. One of the things I should have mentioned is that for neighborhood improvement projects, you have to be in a census block group where low to moderate, 51% of the people are low to moderate income. Back to the number, the $88,000 number for a family of 4. So if the neighborhood has 51% low to moderate income, we can work in it. If it's not, we can't work in it. So a big chunk of the Village of Maple Park actually does have a low to moderate income block group. So we're going to be doing some work there last year, and they've got an application in your pile for next year, for this year. The next one is Ogden Gardens water main replacement, phase 1, 2, and 3. What you're seeing here is the completion, some photos of a work that's been finished on phase 1, which was the replacement of the pump and the well house. This is a interesting project.
Ogden is Aurora.
I think this is Aurora.
Yep.
This is
It's
unincorporated.
Unincorporated, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's an unincorporated subdivision in the city of Aurora that actually owns its own water system.
It's
These
not,
people have been-
it's, just to be clear, it's not in the city of Aurora.
Yes.
It's
Unincorporated.
unincorporated.
Yep.
Our program does not include the territory in
Government Aurora-ish.
ish.
Yes.
Yes.
The Aurora-ish.
I-
It is, gonna mail it.
It's
It's
Metropolitan Aurora. Yes, okay.
I think I was at a community meeting there and they were begging for help and a little mad. So I'm glad we're getting this done for them.
Yeah. So, but the three phases are, one was replacing the pump and the well house, and then two was replacing the water mains. And currently, like in the next, and it was at the development committee, the approval for the contract earlier this week, is to replace the service lines between the water mains and the house so that they can get to the water. But this is, it's an interesting project because it's an unincorporated, there's nobody responsible for it. It's the whole, it's a town hall, it's basically a homeowners association that's responsible for water main replacement.
Mhm.
And so we've been working with Jody's department and Water
Jody, yeah.
Resources as the kind of the overseer of the project,
Mhm.
make sure we have people who understand, engineers dealing with all the issues with it.
It was a whole neighborhood, right? That
Mhm.
was,
125 units.
yeah.
So,
And this is actually the second water project that we have done because we also did one in Mokerville like
Okay.
17 years ago. This,
Yeah, that's correct. This is somewhat unique in Kane County. There are very few what are called water trusts. They're not municipal infrastructure. They're not public in nature. They're, as Josh described, much like a homeowners association or a condominium association. It's very much a private sector system. And in order to participate in this program and access federal funding, we did work with that organization to establish a special service area that is lying in kind of a coma and is available to stand up and provide, receive revenue, taxes from the participating homeowners in the event they need funding to maintain their system in the future. It's kind of a safety net that we established.
do you have the same kind of situation that every old city faces? Elgin, is always aggravating itself over the water it loses rather than the water that actually gets to where it needs to go. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's worth fixing.
the next project is a street replacement project in the village of North Aurora. That is off of just north of Butterfield Road on the east side of North Aurora. And now we will get back to some of our homeowner rehab projects. We actually had two of them that completed over the last year. One is the energy efficiency program. This is a partnership with some of the bigger state utilities, i.e. NICOR or ComEd, to help homeowners reduce energy use. I think if you ever listen to the radio and they say this program was sponsored by ComEd and under Illinois state law, blah, 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 that's where we partnership with them. They replace the furnaces but they won't replace the pipes that need to go to the furnace because it's a new furnace. So we brought in that a little bit of dollars to help get those connections taken care of. And so this program is now done because before COVID, the utilities partnered with the state through the weatherization program, but during COVID, they built up all this money, so they're in violation of state law. So they went directly to organizations like Community Contacts to do work individually. Now they're going back to the weatherization partnership. So it was a good thing to have for a while. And the next one is the owner occupied rehab program. This has been an ongoing program that we've had probably since the beginning of 1998. And since January 2023, we have finished 14 units. And this is for people, who owns homes that are 80% income or less. We provide funding for energy efficiency, eliminate substandard living conditions, roof repairs, handicap accessibility, and it all comes in the form of a $20,000 loan that is deferred and no interest. So again, it's kind of like the down payment assistance on the affordable housing program. You have it. It sits there and forever and ever and ever. You pay it back when you refinance your house, you sell it or something to that extent. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
All right, so the last element of our program update for you focuses on our homeless initiatives. We have what is called a continuum of care that covers all of Kane County, including Aurora and Elgin. This is a partnership that we have with those two of our largest communities. And the idea of the continuum of care is to gather around all the various agencies that are in some way involved in addressing the needs of the homeless population, with the idea that the services those agencies provide should be coordinated and that there should be a organized effort to facilitate the award of federal and state funds to address homelessness, and that we have a local kind of panel to monitor activity and collect data regarding the homeless population.
What, did you say Aurora with this?
I did. I
My
did.
ears perk up when
Yes.
people say.
So the federal government requires that in order to access funding to address homelessness, that a locality have a continuum of care. It's the idea that the federal government doesn't want to be making awards of funding to various agencies without some guarantee that they're working together and collaborating.
Okay,
So it's, in part to avoid duplication of effort
all right.
and waste. So the last item on our bullet point list there is to collect and analyze data for planning. And that takes me to my next slide. Whoops. Okay, this works the opposite. Okay, is our point in time count. So once a year, we take a census of the homeless population, and this is an effort that occurs on one night. This year, it was January 25th, and it's a collaboration between social service agencies and law enforcement agencies. So we work with your various police stations, the sheriff's office, et cetera, to make sure that we get an accurate count of the homeless population. Generally speaking, that population falls into two categories. The sheltered population, those folks that are taking advantage of shelter services in our communities, and those that aren't. That's considered the street population. This year, we tallied a total of 540 individuals that were homeless in Kane County. And of those, the majority, 418, were in shelters, and 122 we found sleeping outside. Approximately 100 of the sheltered population were children under the age of 18, and 5 were veterans. This number went up from last year. We typically see a population of 425 to 450 per year. This year, we think part of the increase was a result of a relatively new initiative in Elgin. This winter, the city of Elgin stood up a warming center, and with really no eligibility criteria, no substance abuse testing, no entrance requirements and standards. And so this year, we think that a lot of the people that formerly were invisible to us that we couldn't find went to the warming center, and therefore we were able to count them and include them in the census. So we did see an increase in the number of people that we counted, but we think that we can explain the bulk of that increase, that formerly it was an invisible population to us. It's hard to access and count every individual when they're kind of hiding in the community, and they really don't want to be counted. So again,
Tom, when we say 18 were children, can I?
100,
To me, that says,
100 were children.
sorry, I'm so sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Immediately, my brain says that that's part of a family that's there.
Correct.
And then the other part of my brain says, don't make that assumption, ask a question.
It's a mix of both, but I would say the majority are dependents that are following their parent or their guardian into a shelter.
Thank you.
Correct.
To your point about don't make that assumption, it's hard to count 16 to 24-year-olds because they're very good at couch hopping. They're homeless in the world, but guess what? They're at Ted's house tonight, Bill's house tomorrow, all that other kind of stuff. But to your point, that is inaccurate. There is if you talk to the homeless coordinators at the high schools and stuff like that, they say the population's bigger, but we can't access that because we don't know where Bill and Ted live and all that other kind of stuff. So, but to your point, there is an invisible, what I would call young people, not children by type thing, that we can't count, that we don't know about because of the couch hopping. Their buddies are putting them up for a couple nights and all that kind of stuff.
A question, Madam Chair, question. What was it the prior year? You said it went up because of that shelter in Aurora.
It's about 420, I believe.
Oh,
last
so about
year.
100 more?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, thank you.
I mentioned earlier that the continuum of care helps to facilitate access to funding at both the federal and state levels. At the federal level, the funding is administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under their continuum of care program. And what we're providing to you today is a multi-year report showing you how the amount of funding that we've been able to access from Washington, and when I say we, I'm not referring to my office necessarily, but social service agencies primarily, your Hesed House, your Pads of Elgin, Lazarus House, et cetera, agencies that access funding to support their efforts. In our most recent award, we topped out just over $2.5 million, an all-time record for our continuum. The trend line here is that tells us that we're doing a pretty good job of coordinating services and accessing federal funding. The federal government scores us as an organization on how effective we are at gathering the relevant data, monitoring the performance of our agencies in the delivery of services, and various metrics regarding the population. We're providing you a breakout. I won't go through every line, but I think you'll see we have a handful of agencies that access federal COC funding. Generally, these are funds that support a combination of rapid rehousing programs. That's a rent assistance program to get a homeless population rehoused and on their way back on their feet. Also, permanent supportive housing, which is typically rental housing that individuals that require wraparound support services go into and receive that kind of counseling and support to be independent, to live relatively independently. We also receive funding to support our planning efforts, coordinating all these different agencies that we work with, as well as to support a database into which all the agencies input information about the population they serve. All about collecting that data so we can understand better our population, the services they're getting, and the services that they need. I also mentioned that we coordinate access to state funding. And as you can see, this chart reflects a year-to-year deviation in funding. You can see that between last year and our most recent allocation, we saw a tremendous increase in funding. This is a combination of what is called emergency solutions funds, state homeless prevention funds, those come from the legislature, and a new program for our current year, which is Home Illinois. I'll talk about that in just a minute.
How do you plan with allocations like that?
How do we plan?
How do you plan when it goes from 2
Well-
million to 500,000 to 2.5 million?
Well, in this case, I would say planning constitutes coordinating applications for funding. So typically when the state wants to distribute a funding source to the local level, they look to the continuum of care to basically coordinate an application process. And so we notify all our member agencies. We have an opportunity here. Illinois wants to provide funding to address a particular need. Are you interested in standing up services?
Mhm.
And then our continuum of care has a board that reviews those applications and coordinates a consolidated application package that goes to DHS.
Okay.
We don't get the funding from DHS. DHS provides it directly to the agencies, but they look to us to coordinate access so that it's
Okay.
not out of control, basically.
Okay.
But without
you.
our coordination, the funding wouldn't come here. They would,
Mhm.
they would send it off to other places. The continuum of care has to participate, or else the state won't give money to the organizations within our
So are we a pass-through?
No, we're a coordinator.
coordinator. Information only.
Okay.
What I would basically say to you, Mavis, is that the state of Illinois doesn't want to take the time and effort to coordinate all this with local agencies. They pass that responsibility down to the local level
Hmm.
and say, if you're willing to coordinate access to this resource, it can be made available to your local agencies.
But the money doesn't come to us and then to them.
No.
Well,
No,
in
we're a
all,
facilitator.
in all realities, it's also a way for them to say, well, we're not going to dictate to you how you spend your money.
Mhm.
You guys know your area better. Do you need permanent supportive housing? Do you need rapid housing? Do you need, homeless prevention funds?
Mhm.
What do you need? And so it's the state's way of also saying, getting it off their plate and putting it in our plate, but keeping it in meeting our goals and our needs and stuff like that.
Okay, great.
Question. Do we get reimbursed for that administrative cost?
No. Well, yes, we do, but we get reimbursed from the federal government. I mentioned earlier in the slide with federal funding, we get money to support planning efforts. And I will say also, the city of Elgin and the city of Aurora each provide us funding from their general fund to support that
They're
effort.
getting it from the feds and they're just passing it on to us to help.
Well, actually, the two cities provide local funds to us to help support the planning effort.
Okay.
I mean, the city of Elgin and the city of Aurora basically recognize that it's in their best interest to work with the county to coordinate and effectively bring more money into the community.
Right, right.
So I want to just focus in on this new program, new for the current year, which, by the way, we're always kind of working in a lag time. The most recent application cycle was actually labeled 2023. I know we're in 2024, but the funding that was allocated in 2023 is coming to our area in 2024. And I just want to note that this is a combination of agencies that are providing either permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing assistance, or what is called shelter diversion. Shelter diversion activities are aimed at preventing people from dropping into the safety net of the emergency overnight shelter system, which has limited capacity, and it's generally cheaper and more effective to prevent somebody from ending up in homelessness than to get them out of homelessness. So once someone falls into the homeless category, it is a harder trek to get them back on their feet. And so the recognition is that it's in our interest to help divert that population if we can. And you can see this is a sizable amount of money. Again, this is state of Illinois funds. The legislature funded this program, and our area benefited to the tune of $1.3 million, serving 102 estimated individuals. And then finally, I want to just note that apart from all the activities I just described, our office is running two programs that help to address homeless prevention as well as rapid rehousing. And in essence, these are rental assistance programs, perhaps assistance paying utilities for individuals that are either about to become homeless and we want to prevent them from being evicted, or we're rehousing them. They've become homeless and we're putting them back into rental housing and providing them financial support to get back on their feet. I will say that's been a difficult effort because right now our vacancy rate, and for some time, our vacancy rate in the rental market has been extremely low. We're talking less than 1% vacancy. So we can't put somebody in a unit that's not available. And our team of staff have been working hard to work and collaborate with landlords that are willing to accept our tenants and work with us to make sure they're successful. You can see that we've served about 30 households in each of these efforts. And this is countywide. So in summer, I'm sorry.
I was say, just an example about the vacancy rate. In February 2020, the vacancy rate in the county was just a little bit less than 10%, a little bit higher in Aurora and Elgin. And countywide now it's like 1.6%. So it's plummeted.
So it's harder and harder for people that, I've even heard 0.5%. Was that,
At different
it goes
times,
up and
yeah.
down?
It fluctuates, but yeah, I mean, it goes from
So
1.6.
how's anybody supposed to find a starter home or a starter apartment or?
It's difficult.
It's difficult.
Very difficult. Very tight housing market nationwide and locally.
When I tried to give stuff to the Goodwill or the Mission down in Aurora, chairs they won't take it. They're full to the gills with stuff like that. And I think it's because people can't start new homes because there's no apartments or houses for them to put it in. So
this is my last slide. I just want to kind of underscore the main point of what we're talking about regarding the continuum of care. You'll see in the funding items that Josh is going to present to you that we are asking for the use of a modest amount of community development funding from this panel to support the effort involving homelessness. And I just want to note that for the modest investment that is typically made by this commission in the homeless category, we see a return of over $5.1 million typically. So we try to always look at leveraging resources and making a modest investment and getting a big return. This is a good example of that. A modest $30-something thousand investment returns over $5 million in funding that comes to our community, not directly to the county, but to area agencies primarily to undertake these efforts. So that's my last slide for the homeless category. I will turn it back over to Josh.
Does anybody have more questions about our project update? Okay,
Josh, just for point of clarification. I know last time I sat in on one of these was a year or so ago, but it was a Zoom meeting. How long do you anticipate you need today?
I'm sorry,
How
How
long?
long's your meeting running today?
about another 15 minutes maybe?
Oh, I thought it was hours.
We're at the end.
You want overtime?
Yeah,
Cliff, do you want overtime or time and a half?
We're usually done by now, so.
Okay.
well, I can extend this. I mean,
No,
I've got,
hey, we're-
I
we're-
got data here. If you really want me to start taking this longer, so.
I'll make it longer. Could you just, on one hand or something, tell me what the continuum of care really means? Is it everything you're talking about here is all part of the?
When we refer to the
Okay.
continuum of care, we're referring to a roundtable. I'm going to use some vague terms here. It's a roundtable of agencies, an Aurora representative, an Elgin representative, pads of an Elgin representative, Community
AID.
Crisis Center, Hesed House, Lazarus House. I could go on.
Yeah.
Prairie State Legal Services, the VA,
Okay,
any agency that has an interest
okay,
in serving homeless individuals is welcome to join the continuum of care.
okay.
And when you join the continuum of care, what you're doing is you're volunteering to sit on that roundtable to plan and coordinate services to the homeless population. And a big piece of that is coordinating and recommending to either the state or the federal government how to allocate their money.
I like it. Thank you. Thank you.
And I would also just reiterate that the state and federal government like the continuum of care because as a funder, that is a reassurance to them that there's some coordination and organization at the local level. It means that their investment is going into a geography where people are coordinating and they're trying to solve problems and working collaboratively. Without a continuum of care, the state and federal government don't have any guarantee that there's coordination and organization at the local level.
Mhm. Great, great. I thought the continuum of care was the name of a program, but it's really the
Yes.
name of the consortium.
It's the
Like
name of the federal
consortium.
government's program,
Okay,
and it's the name of our roundtable.
okay,
And we are not alone. Look any direction around here, and there'll be a continuum of care in DuPage,
okay,
Suburban Cook, Chicago, Lake, et cetera.
good. Thank you.
Hey, we'll get to the fun part, the allocating the 2024 funds. We have, first slide here shows you the resources that we have available to us. We have a 2024 federal allocation that we're estimating to be 1.2 million or just a little over that. We're estimating because HUD hasn't given us our exact allocations yet. They have since the budget passed so long, it didn't pass until March 9th. They have until May 8th to tell us the numbers, but they also want us to move forward. And for this committee meeting, and then we'll sync up the number at the development committee to, and it should be off maybe by a couple $1,000s here or there. But then we have program income and carryover funds. Program income is money that we receive from selling a home or somebody has paid back a loan or something like that. And then the carryover funds are projects that finished under budget, a couple $100,000 or a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there, that type of stuff. For a total budget funds available of 1.75 million. The next slide covers all of our individual funding requests. In your staff reports, you kind of got an overview of each of the projects. The first one is the Affordable Housing Fund. Total budget's about $4 million, and we were looking at a $750,000 request. This goes back to the housing redevelopment and the rental development projects. Again, this project scores very well on our evaluation criteria. Complete and readiness, these projects usually run off and go right away. They meet a comp plan objective. The only place where they don't score an excellent is the financial capacity. Without more money, this project falls apart. That's so for us on a scoring thing, we say, guess what? Because they can't be self-sustained, we give it a good versus an excellent. We're recommending an award of $722,345. The next project is the Carpenterville resurfacing program. This is again the removal of concrete and sidewalks and replacements of the sidewalks in the road, and it's for three different streets: Mora Road, Toro Circle, and Amarillo Court. Total budget is $887,221. We're requesting and recommending $443,605, which is about 49% of the costs, which in our world is good leverage. It's a neighborhood project, meets all of the criteria that we have. And again, that's our recommendation on that one. And we have, the next one is the Village of Maple Park, again, multiple streets, Maiden Pine Lane and the Village and also a couple other streets, which I see I have a typo here, apologize for that. And their total budget is $585,000 and they're requesting $292,500. Project is ready to go. They meet a consolidated plan requirement. The Village we've worked with them before, so they're strong. And our recommendation is funding $292,500. And the last project is our HMIS one. This is what Scott was talking about, the investment. We get $154,000 in funding from the feds to stand up the HMIS project. HMIS is the database for counting the homeless people. Everybody has to have it to continue to get contemporary care funds and state funds. And so we get 154 from the feds and we put in $28,000 because we're required to match it. And again, meets all the requirements other than financial sustainability.
So just to wrap up our overview, Josh has reported to you that we estimate a community development fund with resources of 1.75 million. He has presented to you a recommendation for the use of those dollars. You can see our total is 1.75 million. So our revenue and our expenses balance. And we'd like to take any questions at this time that you might have of us.
The one thing I didn't mention was this administration line item. That's the money we use to pay staff to administer all the programs.
Is someone willing to move the recommendations?
Bates will move.
Sir,
In a second? Mr. Harris?
No, this young man here.
That's
No,
fine.
he's older than you. There you
And you're both young.
We don't want to be too heavy on the county board folks, right? Is there further discussion on these recommendations? Questions?
Madam Chair, Josh, on the planning and admin,
Mhm.
we, meaning your group, doesn't do any engineering planning. It is truly administrative.
That
Through
actually can't be used for engineering.
Got it.
You
Okay.
can't even use it for engineering. You have to have a specific project to do engineering costs.
So Carpentersville comes in and says, here's our plans. We are not saying, oh, you need a bigger curb. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Other discussion?
So communities come to us with their requests.
Yes, so we didn't mention this, but earlier this year, we coordinated a call for projects and notified the municipalities that they might be eligible to apply for funding if they would need it. Obviously, as Josh discussed, we have eligibility criteria that have to be met regarding low mod benefit, low income benefit. And so this year we had 2 municipalities come forward with infrastructure projects that they would like funding for.
How many?
2, Carpentersville and Maple Park.
So 2 applied, 2 were granted.
Correct.
We're recommending, yep.
Okay.
And it ebb and flows. Like last year we had 5. It just ebbs and flows depending on what they have going on and all that other kind of stuff. And it gets a little bit difficult when we get further into the budget year, when Congress takes longer to pass a budget and get us moving on this process. Cities and villages are already into their budget years and we have to have them spend money before December 31st of this year because of spending requirements. So last year, the budget was passed earlier, so we got moving faster. So we had more cities apply because it was within their budget year.
Josh is referring to Congress. in
Congress,
case you're
yes.
wondering.
Yeah. So because Congress, like last year, they think they passed the budget on December 30th or something like that.
Well,
It was-
if only 2 apply, it makes you think, well, did the other towns know about it or? did
Oh,
we
no,
get
they
the
know
word
about it.
out?
All the engineers, we know all the engineers
Okay.
in all the villages and they all get a direct email blast
Okay,
from us.
So the 1.75, that's the maximum amount you have or the maximum requests?
That's the maximum amount we have.
Okay, got it. So should Sleepy Hollow come and say, hey, I needed a little bit. Sorry, closed, we allocated what we had.
Correct.
Yeah, just
So again,
anticipating the questions.
yeah,
you know.
again, here's what we have available, 1.75 million. Yeah. And just to be honest with you, we made this balance because we have flexible categories like affordable housing. So 722, 345, that's the last number that we put on the screen because it's what we had left over.
All right.
It's easy to balance a budget when you have a line item that can vary depending on what you have available.
Additional discussion?
No, call the question. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Want to call the roll?
Allen,
Alan, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes?
Skillman,
Abstain.
Barris,
Barris, yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Surges.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Well, folks, are anything for the good of the cause?
I would just say that we thank you for your recommendation. It will go forward and be incorporated into our annual action plan that we submit to the federal government. It's basically our application for funding. And that plan will go to the development committee and ultimately the county board for approval prior to submission.
Oh, you can't have much more fun than giving away a couple $1 million.
Good guys.
Madam Chair,
Before we adjourn, go ahead.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Can I make a
Sorry,
quick
Chris.
commercial while I have a small audience here? This Saturday, April 20th, the City of Elgin Sustainability Commission will host its second Elgin Earth Summit. And I bring that up today because one of the featured speakers, actually, our first featured speaker is Ted Redmond, who is with Pale Blue Dot and is a consultant on your climate action plan. So he'll be providing an update on the status of that planning effort. The second speaker, I think would be of particular interest to this group. The individual's name is Naomi Davis. She is the CEO and founder of an organization called Blacks in Green. And Blacks in Green is a technical advisor to Region 5, federal EPA Region 5, which is Illinois and our immediate surrounding states. They have been contracted and tabbed to provide technical assistance to communities in that region to avail themselves to federal funding programs through the IRA program and the Justice 40 program. So Elgin, Aurora, and Carpentersville all have census tracts that qualify for Justice 40 funding. So she'll be one of the featured speakers as well. So there'll be about 20 to 25 organizations represented at tabling events. Our third speaker is Parker Thompson. He's the founder and executive director of Elgin Community Bikes. So I think we've got a good lineup of speakers. There'll be a entertaining event. It runs from, it's at the Heritage Ballroom in the center of Elgin. It will start at 9 o'clock and conclude at 1 p.m.
9 to 1. That's the same day as Kiwanis and Sierra Club's river cleanup. But 9 to 1, maybe I can remember last year I got there like at 5 minutes to 1. So it was a very nice event. So I'm going to put a plug in, may I, for the Aurora Green Fest on June 8th. And I was wondering, Scott, if you do any tabling events, because I would love to get your energy efficiency information out to our 1,000 visitors to the Aurora Green Fest. Do you do tabling?
Not generally, but
Would you like to start?
We will be happy to provide you. I assume this is a Saturday event.
Pardon me?
Saturday event, is that correct?
Yeah.
We'd be happy to provide you information. to
Okay.
distribute. I don't know what you're looking for, but we'll talk with you after the
If you
meeting.
have flyers or something like that, that'd be helpful. Okay.
Let's
great.
connect after the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Roth?
This is more of a high level question. Over the years, I've heard that the government's just kind of kicking the can down the road on solving homelessness. But that's not really true. It's just, it's not communicated. like you had mentioned, we're trying to prevent people from falling into that is a good thing.
That's correct.
Do we track, like, okay, we got this many people out of homelessness that don't fall back in? I mean, I know it's not easy to track that.
We do track that. Josh mentioned earlier our homeless management information system.
Right,
That is a database that
Okay.
has names in it.
right.
Literally every agency that participates in our continuum of care is logging in the clientele that they're serving.
Right.
And so we spend a lot of effort monitoring the traffic in and out of that
Okay.
population.
And I know we don't have controls on what causes homelessness necessarily, but there's things we can put in to avoid it or get them out and have them become productive, taxpayers or whatever. I think it's important. Do we kind of track that?
We
Kind
do.
of show a,
We do. It's an ongoing effort though.
Oh, yeah,
And
no,
it's a
yeah.
It's a job that's never done.
it's kind of like the alligator, something pops up, you knock it down and something else pops up.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you know the neighbor? Are you familiar with the Neighbor Project in Aurora?
Yes.
Does that fit into any of these funds or?
That
is
agency
it
doesn't
different?
participate in our programs. So
Mostly
we've-
because they work primarily in Aurora and most of our funds can't be used in Aurora.
Because Aurora has its own program.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for bringing your expertise to us once again. It's always good to see you.
Well, and thank you for your
Thank you for
time.
this meeting.
We like to keep our meetings to about an hour. In this case, we ran about 10 minutes over. Sorry about that.
For us, that's really good. So
But we're still 2 minutes less than what I told you, so.
Bates
Yep.
moves to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn,
Bates.
second? Thank you.
Thank you.
All in
Madam
favor,
Chair.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye.